Music, magic, and myths. These elements are all incredibly intriguing on their own, but when combined, they shape themselves into something more. That being Black Rhapsody. This week on Schedule for Launch, join me, Zach Walsh, as I speak with indie comic creator Missrena about her upcoming comic, Black Rhapsody. Join Alethea, a musician who wishes to join her idols on stage, but is also the wielder of the goddess gift of Hecate and the abilities that come with it. We talk about indie comics, mythology, and writing. Welcome to Schedule for Launch, a podcast to discover the projects that you may have missed. This week, I am super excited to be bringing on our first comic author of what's going to be quite a few, actually. Missrena, thank you so much for joining me this week.
Hello, Zach. Thanks for having me on.
I am really excited. We're going to be talking about Black Rhapsody, which is this music, magic girl, eldritch horror comic that you're making, and I'm really excited about it.
Thank you.
Your funding's already completed, too, isn't it? That's part of it, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm already funded. I passed my first stretch goal.
That's super exciting. Before we really get into Black Rhapsody, though, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Yes. I am a up-and-coming comic creator. Black Rhapsody is my first project in indie comics. What drew me to becoming an indie comic writer was my love of anime and manga growing up. I always been drawn to Japanese comics rather than Western comics. I didn't get into Western comics until a little bit later in life than most people. One of my first manga was a shoujo manga called Red River. Shoujo is basically comics aimed at young girls. Mm-hmm. So if you heard of things like Sailor Moon, Cardcaptor Sakura, those are perfect examples of shoujo comics that are aimed at, or shoujo properties, I should say, that are aimed at young girls.
Yeah. Now, I noticed you said that this is your first experience into the indie comic scene. Do you have some work in other comics?
No.
That's perfectly okay, too, then. From what I've seen of Black Rhapsody, the writing is amazing, and I love the story concepts behind it. I'm really excited to actually read it. So can you tell the audience a little bit about what Black Rhapsody is?
Yes, Black Rhapsody is a 35-page plus horror culture manga-esque comic book about a group of magical singers in a fight against a evil eldritch goddess turned pop star.
It's such a good elevator pitch. I love it so much.
Yeah.
So that's really the heart of it, too. One thing that really astounds me about Black Rhapsody is the fusion of the magical girl genre and the cutthroatness of the music industry. How'd you go about putting these two together?
For my first manga, I wanted to do like a theme, like a dark magical girl story. But I wanted to have my own theme, similar to how Sailor Moon has the planetary theme. Tokyo Muni has the animal and environmental theme. So I went with music because it's something everyone liked and everyone could get into. But I didn't want to go the stereotypical route and have it just be like idle, cutesy music that you see in like Japanese media. I don't particularly like idle music. So I decided to have each characters, like these different genres, interact. In the early stages, I came up with the concept of mainstream pop artists versus indie artists. And that came about due to a comic book I was reading called The Wicked and the Divine, which basically the entire concept of that story was gods as pop stars. So I kind of took that concept and applied it to Black Rhapsody, having the different magical girls be named after different goddesses. For example, the main character, Alethea, her magical girl persona is the Greek goddess of witches, Hecate.
That's one of the lesser known gods too, which is really exciting for me because you have a lot of space to explore with Hecate.
Yeah, she's also one of my favorite goddesses. That's usually due to the fact that she played a huge role in the rape of Persephone myth. You know, the famous myth between Persephone and Hades. She was the one that reunited Persephone with her mother Demeter. She is kind of the main character of that myth, since she was the one that witnessed Hades abducting Persephone to the underworld.
And if I'm correct, Hecate also has a lot of relationship with death outside of that myth as well.
Yeah, she is also a chthonic goddess, meaning she's associated with the underworld. In Greek mythology, she's described as being a friend to the dead. She can banish evil spirits, but she can also guide lost souls, being a perfect example of what she did with Persephone.
Okay. So does that kind of myth and that stance play into how our main character Alethea, how her abilities works? Because I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, Alethea has necromantic abilities.
Yes, but without the evil aspect, meaning that she can't command the dead to do her bidding, because again, she would be evil. That's something I had to think about. But she can call to them, and they can choose to listen to her call. Meaning that if she's endangered, or she's, for example, has one of the murderers or the perpetrators of a crime against the dead person, and she's about to be harmed, she can call the victim to assist her, but they have to want to come to her. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. But in cases that they do call to her, she allows them the chance to basically gain their own, basically enact their justice. So she's kind of like a beacon to them. So when her music, so when she plays, when she sings, they can choose to come to her or not.
Okay. I really like that concept too, because what I've seen so far and what I've heard about, what I've read about Black Rhapsody is that kind of the story starts off that Alethea is trying to make her way into the music industry, and for reasons unknown to the audience at the moment, she is blocked out, and that leads her down this path.
Yeah. She kind of comes into head with the main antagonist, Dulcibella, and now Alethea has to fight for her life. Another aspect of Hecate's powers is that she can temporarily, through her music, reunite the dead with a loved one for only a night. Give them peace of mind through her song.
I think that's going to be something that audiences are really going to enjoy about seeing Alethea. Just from what I can tell from the art and the positions and how you've kind of presented her, she seems like a kind of like that strong, rebellious teenager who's got a heart of gold.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Dulcibella, and she is the main antagonist of Black Rhapsody. What's her deal? What makes her tick?
She's an ancient god who came back into a world where gods are not as worshipped or as popular among the younger generations, and she's not happy about that. So she decides to become a pop star in order to gain the adoration that she had when she was basically a deity, originally a deity that was worshipped eons ago. And she doesn't like to be quote unquote challenged by mortals in any way. She's like your upstart mortals, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. So we have this very strong, kind of like this very powerful, iconic figure worldwide who has sort of made this spot for herself in popular culture and media.
Yep.
Another thing, too, is Dulcibella is not going to be the only antagonist throughout the series. From what I've seen, there are a number of different myths and people and monsters that Alethea are going to have to face.
Yeah, there's going to be other characters embodied as different deities. I already have the main magical girls in development. They're all based off of different music genres. So for Alethea / Hecate, she's based off the goth music genre Ethereal Wave. It's hard for me to describe Ethereal Wave, if you ever heard of it.
Ethereal Wave is really cool.
Because it was, prior to, me formulating the characters, I had to do research on different genres. I did not know that the goth subculture was a music-based subculture.
Yeah.
I just thought it was a fashion subculture.
There is a lot going on with that. So Here's something fun for both you, Missrena, and audience. The original thought behind this podcast was to really heavily feature indie artists. So I went down a huge rabbit hole discovering different genres of music, and I've found so many artists that I love so much because of where this started. Frequent listeners might notice that we went really heavy into tabletop role-playing games, and I'm really happy about that too.
Yeah, same with me. I discovered some new music that I wasn't originally into. I became a fan of an artist called Curly Cove. She's an Estonian artist. And an African artist by the name of Mo Roots. Her genre is Afro soul. Yeah.
And I think, though, those music genres and how you've set it up has really given each of these characters super unique and individual and noticeable personalities that you can see even in their costumes, their designs, the way they look, move, stand. And I mean, part of that also is in help from the artists of Black Rhapsody, who I believe is Jan Apple, right?
Yes.
How did you and Jan Apple get in contact? How did you start making Black Rhapsody with them?
With her, actually.
Her. Sorry, my bad.
That's okay. I got in contact with Jan through ArtStation. Prior to Jan, I had a different artist, but unfortunately he couldn't do the project, so I contacted her when I saw her, like, manga art, and I thought then it matched what I was thinking Black Rhapsody should look like, because I was looking at manga artists exclusively and not like Western comic artists. Because as someone who grew up on like manga, I always imagine my work in the manga format.
Mm-hmm. And if I'm correct too, Black Rhapsody's actually releasing in a manga format, right?
Yes. I should also clarify that it's going to be like read in the traditional Western style and not the Japanese style.
Okay, so manga sizing, but graphic novel style.
Yes.
Perfect. What drew you to like this sizing? Was it a finance thing, or was it just like having a book that's like that because you grew up with that kind of stuff? I also grew up with manga, so I get that. If that's the reason, I get that.
It's all of the above. Because I'm not gonna lie, doing like a normal size comic is a bit expensive. Having it be smaller does reduce size. Plus, I really want to do a manga because that's what I grew up on.
People who aren't creators right now don't realize is that there's a huge paper shortage, and the cost of print is so expensive right now.
Yeah, that's also another reason why I set the fulfillment date to a year to account for any type of production issues.
Well, on top of that, too, you have the prices on the Indiegogo for your pricing when it comes to each tier. You price these things super fair.
Yes, I'm all about being fair because, again, I'm a new creator, so it doesn't make sense for me to, like, make it expensive when people don't have... You understand, like, a new entrepreneur, you don't have that trust yet.
Yeah, exactly. And this is part 1, so there's more to come, hopefully. But a digital copy of Black Rhapsody is only going to rent you about $10 USD.
Yeah.
So I know that goal was to make it fair to print out. Can you talk a little bit about pricing, how that worked?
I had asked someone to help me with the pricing because it wasn't going to be the same as what a normal comic book was. Because when I saw other campaigns, like normal, like Western comic campaigns, they were priced a bit differently than mine. And since I don't have the same amount of pages and my book is a bit smaller, it's going to be a little bit less than that compared to like a full-size comic with like, let's say 40 plus pages, which would be like $25 on like an Indiegogo campaign.
Yeah, that makes total sense to me.
Had I charged that price for Black Rhapsody, I would have never gotten funded.
I watched the launch party that you had. I wasn't there live for it. I went back and watched the VOD for it. And there was a lot of support really quick. Missrena, can you tell me how you felt watching that?
I was kind of very surprised. Like, my phone and my iPad were blowing up. I couldn't believe the amount of people that were backing at during the event, because you probably saw that I was flabbergasted.
It was so sweet to watch. I was so happy for you just listening.
I was fumbling my words the entire time because I was just in disbelief that I was like halfway to my goal within a couple of minutes.
It's one of those things that's so exciting for me because my guess is that this is something that's sat on the back burner for you for a long time, and you were finally pulled the trigger and did it. And to see it succeed so quickly always warms my heart. One of the best parts about that entire event, too, was hearing your reaction when people were saying that they were the first person to back it. I thought it was hilarious and very sweet.
Yeah, I was appreciative. It's just I was so nervous and in disbelief I couldn't like get the words out.
What were you expecting to happen, if you don't mind me asking?
I wasn't expecting to reach it that fast. Like, I thought I would at least be like at 30% at best by the end of the night. When I woke up later, I was close to 80%.
Oh my goodness. And you released it on, was it a weekday for you? I was looking back, I was trying to figure it out. It was
the first Saturday of May.
Mm-hmm. And I remember, because what listeners who don't follow me on Twitter don't know is that a lot of the times in the indie community, people will post different ways to self-promote people's own stuff or other things like that. And the run-up to the Indiegogo campaign being launched, I started to see adverts for Black Rhapsody. And having seen that for a couple of weeks and then seeing how quickly it succeeded was really impressive. And it was cool because, like, we've had some minor conversations through Twitter, but getting all that support's been really great. And you said that there was actually a kind of a weird crossover between the comic book kind of area and a surprisingly large number of tabletop people joining in on Black Rhapsody.
Yes.
Where do you think that crossover kind of started? What happened there?
I think it's because of how I pitched it, plus the character designs that was on the mailing, the at the time mailing list.
Yeah.
A lot of people, when they saw the characters on the mailing list, it immediately reminded them of like D&D archetypes, which I'm not a D&D person, so I don't know the archetypes, unfortunately. But when I pitched it as Madoka Magica meets Berserk, that immediately got eyes on it. There was a lot of people who were Madoka fans. There was a lot of people who were Berserk fans. There was a lot of people who were like general music fans, as well as manga fans. So I think it had to do with largely the pitching and me showing the art.
It's that art that caught my eye the first time I saw it. You have this incredible image of Alethea on one side with the guitar and the black veil, and then on the other side you have this what kind of looks like a magical girl fairy thing going on.
That's Hecate.
Okay.
You'll learn why Alethea becomes that later on in the story.
Yeah, I kind of assumed I would, and I'm excited to learn more about that. My guess is that has some part to play with the goddess gift that is a part of this story.
Yes.
Without going too much into spoiler territory, what is a goddess gift?
A goddess gift is what grants a young girl the powers of a magical girl. They come from they're the last remnants of the power of the goddesses of old, the creator goddesses that created the world of Black Rhapsody. We don't know what happened to them, but before they died or at least vanished, they gifted their creations their power to protect themselves in their wake. This inevitably gave birth to magical girls. Hence why every single magical girl is named after a specific goddess, because they are all potential goddesses.
Okay, I really like that. Something that I think also people need to know, because I don't think we've said it directly yet. The characters of this aren't just from the Greek pantheon. You've added a lot in here.
Yes, a whole bunch of different pantheons. The Shinto pantheon, also known as Japanese mythological pantheon, the African pantheon, the Egyptian pantheon, any pantheon you can name, the Norse pantheon, Chinese pantheon. You're going to see a lot of different music genres and different cultures kind of like represented as these different goddesses. Because it's not just Hecate / Alethea. You also have you're going to eventually see a magical girl who is based off a Japanese ice dragon god who represents the music genre melodic death metal. You're also going to see a magical girl who is based off of the music genre Afro Soul, who is named after the Yoruban goddess of nature, animals, and the forest.
Missrena, what was research for this like? Because not only was there music, there was a lot of stuff going on with religions and fashion. How did it look? What was this like?
I kept changing certain details. Like, the research part kind of it helped with me design the different characters, because, like I said, a lot of the girls went through changes in order for me to try to figure out how to take the goddess of that mythology and try to make her powers work through song. Hecate was relatively a bit easy to do compared to the other goddesses I looked up, but a large problem was the music genres that I decided to choose for some of them. I wasn't familiar with them, so I had to have someone who is much educated on certain genres that I was, to kind of like explain to me the lyrical themes in that genre.
Okay.
Or what the sounds of that genre, like what are the emotions, the themes, what are the type of people that tend to sing that specific genre? Because that was something that was kind of a struggle for me originally.
And now you basically eat, sleep, and breathe pantheons?
Yes. Most of my tabs are literal research for the book.
I have so much respect for that. I love folklore and mythology. Whenever I get to see new stuff played with, I really like it. And that's how you get characters like the glamorous marionettes, from which I understand are the Furies mashed with bubblegum pop.
Yeah, imagine if the Greek Furies were basically a kitty pop idol group.
Good and interesting rewards outside of just part one. Can we go over some of the stuff that you added when you pushed over the stretch goals? What it was like getting a saucy image of Miss Daphne Campbell designed?
The first tier you see on the campaign is the all-in-one plus the acrylic standee. In that tier, you get three pinup prints of the lovely and voluptuous Daphne Campbell. You also get an acrylic standee. An acrylic standee inspired by the cover art of the standard cover, which features Alethea and her magical girl persona Hecate, which is still being worked on. You also have the book with the standard cover, a printed copy of the book and the standard cover, and the variant cover, and a digital copy of the standard cover book. Also, a 18 by 24 poster of the virgin cover art.
So you also have that variant cover art. Is that what you said there? It cut out for just a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. The standard cover art. The variant will automatically be included in the all-in-one tier for $50.
Okay, that's a really good deal, especially for a physical copy.
Yeah, you'll get 2 different physical copies of the book that feature the 2 variants.
So this is funding for just part 1, and I feel like there is a lot more that we're going to get from Black Rhapsody. To you, Missrena, what is the writing process like when creating a comic?
Oh my gosh, I tend to. I started planning out different sequences for the characters. Like, what would this character do in this situation? How would they react to it? Because during my first drafts, I was still trying to figure stuff out for the story, and I kept going back and forth because I wasn't initially happy with my first few drafts. Now that I'm done with the first part, I know where to guide the story now.
So you have the story made up there, and I'm guessing it's writing a comic's a lot different than writing like a classic novel.
Yeah.
I don't have much experience writing. I did that for the first time recently. It was really rough, so I have so much respect for you.
Thank you. I should also say that my first draft was like 100 pages. 100 plus pages. So I literally had to chop up that first draft into 3 parts. This is the first part that you're seeing on the campaign. The second part and the third part are already done and edited. It just needs to be drawn.
So you already have part 2 design then?
Yes, part 2 is already done.
Okay, so people could get more of this a lot faster, especially if this goes over well.
Yes, I decided to just do one long script and just cut it into pieces.
So roughly how many parts are we looking at then?
There's a total of 3 parts that are done currently. I'm working on the 4th and 5th part.
And then is it just kind of let it play out and see where the story goes?
Yes. I do have a middle point and an end point. But just for this first part, I'll see where the story goes. I have like plot points that I want to reach with certain characters.
Yeah. I know that the comic industry is pretty tough, especially to get into. And you've had some really heavy success for your first shot as an indie designer. What are some of the things that you've taken away? What's some of the things that you've learned and you're going to move into the next part or the next work that you do?
Some of the things I've taken away was not to overcomplicate my campaign, because originally I had a bunch of stretch goals, and I realized that it might be a bit too much. It might be asking too much of people because I'm a first-time creator. So I decided to play it safe and just decrease it from, let's say, 10 to, let's say, 3. Because I was also being told by other more experienced creators to have more stretch goals. But then there came a point where I realized that sometimes it's best to keep things simple.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe increase it over time as I become more of an established writer.
I think that's perfectly fair. Also, that saves you from getting overly stressed and overly promising all these different rewards.
Yeah, that was also another issue, because the logistics of trying to figure out certain things just became a bit too much.
That's totally fair. Something that we talk about a lot on the show, too, is different funding methods other than Kickstarter. I don't know how familiar you are with the Kickstarter blockchain thing, but there's been a huge push away from Kickstarter as of recently, and you chose to go with Indiegogo. Do you mind talking a little bit about your experience with Indiegogo and how you felt about the service?
Indiegogo is a bit better than Kickstarter, because Kickstarter waits until the campaign ends to take the money. And by then, like, it can be too late for some people, because, there could be cases where people might need their money and they find out later on. It's very inconvenient for the customers, which is what I don't like about Kickstarter. With Indiegogo, they'll just take the money out your account immediately, the moment you back. Which is what I prefer, so backers don't have to worry about, like, missing finances later on. Because that's something I did run into when I started backing campaigns on Kickstarter.
Yeah. I actually just recently ran into that a little while ago. So I totally understand that. Something that Indiegogo does on the customer side then is that it withdraws the money and holds it until the campaign ends.
Yes.
Okay. I didn't realize that. That's super useful for everybody.
Yeah, and I will also the only issue with Indiegogo is that it doesn't let you edit your pledges, which is what Kickstarter allows you to do.
That's something for you creators out there to keep in mind then as you're listening to this.
Yeah, so if you do add something to your tier, you might want to let the backer know about it immediately, or try to get or have them get in contact with you so you can add things to their tier or give them some type of cost-effective solution in order to get like a new item, which is what I plan to do with Black Rhapsody, because people who have already backed the original tiers is who are interested in the getting the variant cover. I encourage them to come into contact with me so I can figure out a solution for them that doesn't have them like paying exorbitant amounts of money just to get another cover of the book.
That's totally reasonable. I think that that's something we'll probably see improve on their end in time, especially as more people move to other crowdfunding sites.
Yeah.
So I know it's been super exciting and you've been really happy with the results so far. You've actually, like I said, you added some stretch goals, you pushed back the date a little bit. What are some of the things that you've taken away and have really excited you about Black Rhapsody, the reception with it, and kind of the buzz about the indie comic scene relating to it?
Yes. Creators need to start getting in the habit of pushing their campaigns outside of the comic community, but also within the comic community as well, because something I tend to see with a lot of creators is that they tend to do ghost launches, which is basically launch a book without people knowing, and then they'll sometimes get upset when they don't get funded. A lot of them tend to unfortunately neglect the marketing side of crowdfunding. You gotta let people know about your project. You gotta pitch it a certain way. You gotta pitch it to certain audiences that might appeal to, like I did with the tabletop community.
I think that's super important too. And that's good advice across the board, because if your audience doesn't know that you're launching something, they're never going to back it. And really the only one to blame is yourself. You are arguably one of the most dedicated to pushing your product, and not even like in a nasty over, because there's some people who are really brutal with it, but you're like, hey, here's Black Rhapsody, this is what it is, come check it out. And there's always like a lot of really positive reception relating to it, so I love seeing when you're posting about Black Rhapsody.
Yeah, thank you. I shall also say that to new creators out there, make sure you utilize the hashtags Work in Progress Wednesday and Self Promo Saturdays, because holy crap, they really do help you. I'm not joking. By the time I was ready to launch, Zach, I got 710 signups.
Holy
2 minutes before I launched.
Which is funny too, because those are such important tags in the tabletop community, and I can definitely see that overlapping with the comic industry, because they're kind of like made for each other. I don't know how much about tabletop role-playing games you know about, but there's a lot of comic lovers in it.
I learned that, and that's why you started seeing me constantly posting in those promo threads. Because I struck gold.
Yeah, yeah, you certainly did. I'm really happy with how things have been turning out for you, Missrena. We've actually been going for almost 40 minutes now. Holy crap. So we should probably start wrapping it up pretty soon. But there's 2 parts of every episode is scheduled for launch that I love having creators talk about, and I ask them every single time. So the first one, super easy. You've gone and done it a little bit. But what advice can you give to a new creator who's trying to get their own project onto paper? What advice can you give to them when they're trying to launch their own comic book or trying to get the word out there and they don't really know where to start?
To new creators, I would suggest trying to find shows on YouTube that promote and uplift other comic creators. Like for example, the one I launched my campaign on, Michael Bancroft.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say utilize Twitter effectively. I wouldn't trust Facebook because Facebook you don't get a lot of engagement. In the Instagram is I haven't tried it yet because it's more of like photos and art. But I would say utilize Twitter effectively because that's where you're going to get a lot of your audience from. Make sure you utilize certain hashtags. Like, if you have a comic book that's horror-oriented, use, like, hashtag horror fam, hashtag horror community. Just try to reach out to the horror community in any way, shape as possible. Or if you have, like, a comic that is more in line with, like, D&D and role-playing, use the aforementioned hashtags I mentioned before, Work in Progress Wednesday and Self-Promo Saturdays, to reach out to the tabletop community. Because a lot of them are comic lovers, a lot of them are D&D lovers, and that's a nice, bonus right there.
Slap hashtag D&D on there, too. Because,
that too.
Yep. Because they're going to love it.
Yeah, I would also encourage new creators to, first of all, get an editor, because editors are your best friend, because not enough comic creators use editors. Like, don't be afraid to have someone criticize your work before you release it to the public. It is much better to get the kinks out right now in the early stages before someone who's backed your book does it. Because if someone backs your book and they receive it and they see that a whole bunch of, like, writing errors or like certain plot points don't make sense, that will hurt your campaign in the future. They may not want to back you again. I've seen this happen with other creators.
Yeah, I've been on that end too. I've seen creators who didn't use an editor. And not only is it disappointing, it feels like you've been lied to as a consumer, at least. And the thing about an editor, too, is that they're not there to be mean. They're trying to make you successful.
Yes, a lot of creators just, they can't see outside themselves, if you know what I mean.
Oh, yeah.
And I understand where some creators might be discouraged. Trust me, during the editing process, I was starting to become discouraged because I came to realize that I'm not as experienced of a writer as I thought I was, but I still have the years to learn and better my writing. There's plenty of like writers that published writers like Stephen King, not Tolkien, George R. R. Martin. They didn't have the best writing when they first started, but look at them now. They're billionaires.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of room for you to improve. You just gotta keep practicing your craft.
Yeah. Also, network. Try to reach out to other comic promo shows. Try to make friends with people in the community who can get you in contact with certain resources. Let's say you need an editor that can probably put you in contact with the editor. That's what happened to me. Let's say you need to shave down the printing costs. Talk to someone who might be in contact with a printer. You save a lot of money.
Yeah. I think what people also don't realize when we're talking about this kind of stuff is how much the indie community is supportive of each other.
Yep. We seek to see other creators succeed the best way we know how.
Yeah. The best way to also make a really strong following is to also support other people. I've seen you do it. It's been great to watch and see you grow. And you kind of like blew up really quickly, and I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, also promoting other creators is an important thing because, again, it's a give and take relationship. You don't want to be the type of person who just takes, because that could potentially damage your relationship with them. You want to promote each other equally.
I think that's some incredible advice, too.
Thank you.
Missrena, where can people find out more about you and Black Rhapsody?
Yes, you can find more information about me and Black Rhapsody at my Twitter account at Magic Gown Media. I post a bunch of updates there concerning the project.
As always, audience, The links for Missrena and Black Rhapsody, including the Indiegogo, are going to be down in the description below. Missrena, thank you so much for joining me. I am so excited to see what happens with Black Rhapsody. I am excited to learn more about Alethea and how you've intertwined music and pantheons of the world. So you've got me like set up for something I'm really excited about.
You're welcome. I shall also, before we go, I also want to pitch Black Rhapsody one more time. If you like dark stories about female goth singers fighting evil goddesses turn R&B pop stars, back Black Rhapsody today, live on Indiegogo.
That's the top link right below this. Go support it. You got like another 2-3 weeks to go do it.
Yep.
Missrena, thank you so much once again for joining me. Audience, thank you for joining us. Missrena and Black Rhapsody, they've already successfully funded, and they are ready to launch very soon. So go support it. Go pick up this comic. Read it. Let Missrena know what you thought about it, because I'm sure she's very excited to have your feedback too and join her on this journey.
Yep.
Until then, though, take care of yourselves. Have a good night, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye. Thank you so much to Missrena for joining me on the show this week. Black Rhapsody is the first exclusively comic project that we've had on the podcast so far, and I certainly think it was a good place to start. The Indiegogo campaign is still going, and Missrena's goals have already been hit. Go support her and back Black Rhapsody. At this point, you have nothing to lose, so go check it out. I'm sure you're going to love it. It's really cool. And as always, thank you for listening, audience. I'm going to try and keep things short today because, as you may be able to tell, my voice isn't doing so hot right now. If you liked what you heard and you want to hear more, why not share the podcast with a friend? We have over 50 episodes now, and I'm certain there's something that at least one of them will like. And if not, maybe you can go back and investigate the ones that you really like. Let me know what you're interested in, and I'm going to try and get more of that stuff on the show. I am not too sure if we're going to have an episode next week due to the whole voice thing, but I'll try and keep you all posted and see where things go. Oh, I also want to give a big thank you to creator Mo Poplar, who has been on the show before. Mo sent me an advanced copy of one of his newest projects, which is a tabletop role-playing game called Bullet in a Blank. We're going to get into that more in the future because he's going to come on. We're going to talk about it a little bit. I love this game, so go support Mo as well. Until next time, though, take care of yourselves, and I will see you on the next one. Bye!